Hello, Dr. Scott.
Hello.
So, what brought you to the Rust College?
I'm an actual physical product of Rust College. My parents met here. My mom just got her 50th anniversary diploma,
Wow.
and I'm a faculty brat on top of it. I used to live up where the baseball field is. Those four houses over there, I lived in the middle one on the left-hand side when you're headed up the hill. So basically, I'm coming back home. The thing that brought me here, this is the third attempt, I guess, to get back here, which is funny because I was living in LA, and most people who live there are like, why would you leave? But people who leave or trying to leave LA have really good reasons to leave LA. Mine was simply, I was just getting exhausted. I do a lot of work out there. So I came back because there was an opportunity to actually help make Wakanda real. That is actually why I am back. There's lots of capacity at HBCUs, and it's not being leveraged. And meanwhile, there are lots of Black intellectuals on the coast who are struggling or actually not being heard or being sidelined, and there's a need for us to come and do the work. So that's why I'm back.
Alright, so what does Wakanda at Rust College look like for you?
For me, it looks like being able to manipulate the things you're learning and put them up on legs and do stuff with it while you're still a student, so that you get some actual training with thinking at depth and acting with velocity. I think a lot of people go to college not knowing why they're going to college, or they go to college thinking, I'm going to get a good job. But it's working out right now in this particular historical moment that people go to college and they feel like they're not being trained for a job. And that is correct, because that is actually not what college is for. The way it's set up right now, it's not for training. So for me, I'm interested in people learning how to have deep thoughts and not get stuck in the deep thought. When I taught before at a Research One university, people would often get stuck in the deep thought, and then they couldn't do anything with it other than maybe write a really terrible paper, or even a great paper, but they didn't know how they could apply it. Reactionary forces is a good way to say it, have done a great job of applying a lot of the tool sets that we've created over time to analyze society and figure out how it's moving. They've used that to truncate possibility. And so I'm interested in people thinking at depth and then undoing a lot of that work that's being done against Black people.
Okay. So going back to LA, what was it that brought you there?
Let me see. So my undergraduate, why did I go to LA? My undergraduate degree, I got it in the Bay Area. And usually what happens is all the Black people just stay there. We just stay in Oakland because Oakland was amazing. I got my degree at Stanford, and most of my friends stayed around the Bay Area. So a lot of people tech industry style or working to some type of social movement, something or other, social justice stuff in the Bay Area. But I was working at California Newsreel actually, and I had not finished my PhD yet, so I was ABD, all but dissertation, and I had a son already, so he was 4 months old, and I was like, I don't know if this job is ever going to pay me enough. So I was working as a marketing assistant, and it wasn't paying very well actually at all, and there was no guarantee that that position would stay, because they were freaking out that I was now a mother. So that's a whole other side thing. So I applied for a postdoc at Smith and one other place, and a job. I applied to like 50 places. Someone loaned me money to apply for jobs because I couldn't even afford the postage. And I actually got an interview at University of California, Riverside. And that's how I ended up in Southern California. I got the one interview and I got the job. I took the job. And that meant I had to move down to Southern California. That's like killing yourself as a Bay Area person to have to go to Southern California. So I moved down there, and I quickly realized I needed a car because I'd been in the Bay Area where you didn't need a car. I had a bike, we had the BART, I had the bus. You walked around so you could meet your friends. It's too hot to do that where I was. Where I went, and I quickly realized the only footprints I was seeing on the sidewalk were my footprints and my son's stroller. One day, people were staring at me while I was walking, and I couldn't figure out why they kept staring at me. When I got inside, the thermostat said 108, so it was also dangerous. And that's when I realized I couldn't stay where my campus was. I had to figure out how to get someplace with a better temperature. So eventually I ended up in LA because most of my colleagues didn't live there either. There were actually people who still lived in the Bay Area and worked all the way down to Riverside. That's like a 5-hour drive. So people were taking that 1-hour flight back and forth because it was crazy. It was so ridiculously hot. So I moved to LA because all of the African culture, the little bit that existed at that time on the West Coast, was in LA. It really wasn't in Riverside. That was much more Indio and Mestizo culture that was out there. So I couldn't even do my research, so I had to go to LA.
And what was your research in?
Performance of Black Power ideologies in Salvador Bahia, Brazil. So I was in and out of Brazil a lot before my son was born, and then I went once or twice afterwards, I think. So I'm due another trip. But one of the groups I was researching was in LA, so it made sense to go to LA to be able to continue taking classes and studying with different elders when they came through. And, not losing Portuguese, not losing a sense of continuity, because the dissertation was based in Salvador, trying to understand how Black people were defining Black is very different than the way we define it here. It's much more like a political party in a way at that time when I was doing the research. And then looking at what people were doing with the rhythms and the dances in diaspora. And there were a couple of groups in LA, there was a group in the Bay Area, and then a few groups, Miami, Brooklyn. So just trying to stay on top of that. It was hard to stay in touch with, and even Chicago, in touch with those Central and East Coast folks, but moving to LA just cut down. Routinely I was coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning from going to take a class, catch a show, do dinner, interview some people, come back with the baby. That had to stop. That wasn't okay.
Well, do you yourself have Afro-Brazilian heritage?
No, it's just, it's hard to explain. So for most African Americans, when you get that opportunity to finally travel someplace, most of us get selected by the place and we don't know it until we get there and we realize, oh my goodness, I'm home, even though we're not. So for a friend of mine, her home was Cuba. Like, she got off the plane in Cuba and she was like, holy crap, these are my people. This is why I didn't fit anywhere, because my people are here. When I got off the plane in Brazil, my legs went weak, actually, because it looked like here. And I've been away from Mississippi for a while. So to get in a plane in, actually I was in, the first time I went, I was an undergrad when I first went. So I got on the plane in San Francisco and I got out in like Mississippi 2.6 or something like that. It was insane. It was like a bunch of Eastern Stars met me at the airport. And I was like, wait, I couldn't process what I was looking at because it was so much like here. Just creepy. That's the best way to describe it. The priestesses there, they all wear white. And so it literally looked like when the usher board was at the airport with the Eastern Stars and I was waiting for someone with a fan. And instead of fans, they were giving out little ribbons around your wrists and saying, make a wish for a good trip while you're here. Same. And I just, and that place picked me from a book. It was just this crazy thing. I was reading a book and this guy made this disparaging comment about the people, the way they were putting together their images on their costume meant that they really didn't understand African culture or even themselves. And I got really furious. I was like, you're a lie. And I wrote a grant and went just to prove this guy. That's how you know you're in your 20s, right? Just to prove this guy you're just a liar. And so I got there. I was like, okay, these people called me here. That's how it felt when I showed up.
Well, before we close out, I just want to ask if there was anything you want to tell the students, any inspiring words.
Inspiring words?
You seem to be a very prolific, inspiring woman. I think you got something.
No, go to class. That's all I got.
I agree.
Go to class. No, for real. So actually this module system is a little kooky and crazy, but in my private consulting business, people book me for 30 days, 40 days, or 50 days, and they pay thousands of dollars for that because I'm going to talk to them every day, and that's really unusual. So when I was coming here, I was like, oh, I know how to do this. This is what I do. There's a certain elegance to meeting every day and setting your goals every day and achieving it. I think people could really make incredible use of the fact that you have class every day by setting goals each day, not for the module, but for each day. So I've tried to design these classes that we know that we have a really big outcome, but you also know that you have to focus on each little part every day and on specific parts, not all the parts at the same time. So the biggest thing to survive here or actually maximize being here is figuring out a daily sprint, right? So I would call those things sprints for my clients. We're going to do a sprint, and it's going to be a 30-day sprint, and you're going to talk to me in the morning for 5 minutes, and at lunch you're going to check in with the question, and before bed I've got something that I want you to do. If you can start getting a rhythm like that together, you're going to crush it here. Because essentially every class you take here is basically at the master's level, because we have you for so many hours. If you come to class, you're doing almost double the hours that someone in a regular semester system is doing. So if you've seen students give amazing talks in my class, or you saw like how did they come up with that scene? It's because most of those people came every day, and they just did the work. They didn't, you have a few complaints, but they just hunkered down and did what I was asking them to do for that day. And then they had an exponential outcome. If you think you can make it up at the end, you won't get an exponential outcome. You'll get maybe just enough to not fail the class. But if you want to get an exponential outcome so that you can go do whatever you'd like to do with what you've learned, you should come to class every day, because you'll learn how to transpose it to other things. It's not just for that topic. Every class you take, you should be thinking, how does this get me to Wakanda? Right? That's what I'm about. How are we taking over the world, right? For real. How are we going to take over this world? Because you are going to take over this world. You don't have a choice in that. It's yours to take over. If you start practicing now, you'll be in a better position than if you don't. Too many people my age didn't practice taking over the world. We made fun of folks who had that thought. So I'm making you practice.
Well, thank you so much for making us practice and also for this great interview. It was my pleasure.
Mine as well.